And behind that, another change, and that is not necessarily going to be warmer. Cold air has been building for quite a while.
Connie McBurney, another reason why TV8 is Iowa's news leader. Downhill Thrill, tonight on TV8, Iowa's news leader.
Good morning. It is Friday, February 7th. I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Mark McEwen. Paula Zahn's in Albertville this day before the Olympics, Olympics Eve. Welcome to CBS This Morning.
Making headlines this morning, a spectacular crash takes 16 lives when a military plane hits an Indiana hotel.
Plus, New Hampshire's influential voters, what message will they send to the nation?
It's cold up here. And will the stars of Albertville shine on the screen? Gene Siskel looks at Olympians and the movies. You remember that movie,
Of course
don't you?
I do.
What's the name of that movie?
I could see the agent. I know you're on the parallel bars. Have I got the vehicle for you? What movie was that? Do you know?
Gene Siskel will tell us a little bit later on in this hour.
I could hardly wait.
That's going to be a good segment. New Hampshire, of course, not a very big state, but it sure packs a political punch every 4 years. This half hour, we're going to talk about the primary with Democratic National Chairman Ron Brown. Then we're going to take a look at the voters in the Granite State.
All right, and now let's go to France and check in with Paula.
Hi, Harry and Mark. Good morning, everyone. From Maribel in the French Alps, one of the 10 venues you'll be seeing a lot of over the next couple of weeks. Much has been made here of the slow pace of work. Already, many of the improvements are finished in Norway, where the Winter Olympics will be held just 2 years from now, but they are still working here in France. Will they be ready when the games open tomorrow? We'll let you know coming up. Harry and Mark?
Pumped? You ready?
I'm psyched.
Yeah.
I got to pack and get all that stuff together, and off we go. Let's take a look at the weather in this country. The rain is sort of dying down in California. There still may be a few leftover showers. The heaviest rain will be found in Nevada and Arizona today. Some snow will fall around the Great Lakes. Southeast will begin to dry out as we prepare to head east to Albertville.
And more weather in a couple of minutes' time now, though, for this morning's news. The Air Force is trying to determine why a Kentucky Air National Guard transport plunged to earth yesterday in Emmonsville, Indiana. The plane hit a restaurant and hotel, killing all 5 crew members, plus 11 people on the ground. Bob Fall reports on the search for answers.
The pilot was highly experienced, probably the best pilot in the unit, says the Kentucky Air National Guard, but his huge transport plane was too slow and too low. It just fell out of the sky, said one eyewitness. Others said they heard some of the C-130's 4 engines sputtering.
All of a sudden, the engines raced on it like it lost lift or something underneath of it, how they get loud.
This morning, it had kind of a weird sound. It sort of splattered and spit for a while. Then I heard this loud explosion, and then I heard 4 more explosions. I came outside, and by that time, the place was in flames.
One wing slammed into the roof of a 4-story hotel, setting it aflame with 35 people inside, some of them rescued by ladder, but 9 perished, burned instantly from flames, which also engulfed JoJo's restaurant nearby.
Everything was, you know, like a ball of fire over there and smoke, so my first reaction was to run over there, see if I could help, but once we got across the street, it was so hot, you know, we had to come back.
Throughout the evening, rescue workers removed casualties, civilians first. We expected to find more people killed than there were, said a Kentucky Air National Guard general, who called the touch-and-go maneuvers that the plane was practicing necessary but risky, something which he said civilian pilots practice at every airport in the country every day. Bob Fall, CBS News, Evansville, Indiana.
Joining us now from the scene of the crash are 2 witnesses to yesterday's disaster. Tom Blevins saw the plane go down. Mike Gentry was in his office nearby and was one of the first to reach the crash site. Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us. Tom, let me ask you first. What did you see?
I was approximately 3/4 of a mile north of the crash scene, driving into the parking lot at the facility which I work. At that time, I noticed the plane coming at a very obtuse angle. Its wings were almost perpendicular to the earth, and at that moment I knew that the plane was in trouble.
Once you knew it was in trouble, what did the plane do? What did you see the plane do?
It was at such an angle, the plane was heading towards a northeasterly direction and falling at the same time, and then it just nosed over and crashed into a huge fireball.
Incredible. Mike, you were one of the first on the scene where the crash took place. What did you see when you got there?
Well, I saw a large cloud of smoke billowing up in the air. flames going at least 100 feet in the air. And at that point in time, I didn't really worry about the fire as much as I was concerned about if there were any people in the hotel. And then that's when myself and several other people entered the hotel and ascended. We went up each floor, and then we ascended to the 4th floor finally, and we were able to rescue 2 people before the smoke overcame us and we had to get out of the building.
How did you get those folks out of there?
When we got to the 4th floor, once we opened the door, the hallway was filled with smoke with the exception of about a foot from the ground. So I got on my hands and knees and I literally yelled into the hallway and talked one person out, and she came out standing up and was very disoriented. We got her downstairs, and then I continued to yell into the hallway, and we had to go down and get some fresh air, come back up, and after several tries, we found one of the victims who was later transferred to Indianapolis, and then we had to carry her out. She had severe burns all over her body.
An incredible day. Mike Gentry, Tom Blevins, thank you for joining us this morning. Do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
CIA Director Robert Gates is in the Middle East reportedly discussing Saddam Hussein's future with Egyptian and Saudi officials. Despite losing the Gulf War, Saddam clings to power in Iraq. Gates is said to be discussing military and diplomatic efforts to force him out. The New York Times says one possible action is a demonstration bombing raid on an Iraqi military target. In Paris today, Russian President Boris Yeltsin and French President Mitterrand signed a treaty of friendship between their two countries. Earlier, Yeltsin warned that a new dictatorship could emerge in Russia if economic reforms fail. France has extended agricultural credits and loans to Russia totaling $650 million. In the financial markets this morning, the dollar is marginally higher. The London stock market was lower in early trading. The Tokyo stock market closed nearly unchanged, up just 2 points. Wall Street opens above 32.55. The index lost 2 points yesterday in heavy trading. The Winter Olympics gets underway tomorrow in France, and there are high hopes for Americans in the men's single luge competition. As Leslie Visser reports, it was a long road to Albertville for one who made the team.
And finally, last selection on the team, the new track record holder at Mount Van Hovenberg, Robert Pipkins.
On January 12th, Robert Pipkins qualified for the U.S. Olympic luge team. He was under the impression that it meant he'd be among the male competitors here in La Plagne. Known for his daring, almost reckless style, the 18-year-old native of New York represents the best hope for the future of U.S. luge. When he arrived in Albertville, though, Pipkins discovered he'd have to race again to compete here on the Olympic track. In a race-off held yesterday, which combined the best times, Pipkins challenged Wendell Suko and Tim Wiley for the final 2 spots on the team. Suko, who'd already qualified for doubles, was the first to earn a spot in singles, behind Duncan Kennedy, who'd already been named. Wiley was eliminated. Pipkins was brilliant, finishing 9th overall and first among the Americans for the competition that begins on Sunday.
Actually, I didn't know I was going to race off until a few days ago. I kind of thought I was already in the team, and then they told us we had to race off, and it's like, oh, well, and just glad everything worked out.
Growing up in Staten Island, Robert Pipkins always envisioned himself swimming at the Summer Olympics, but he's here at the Winter Games where he's already made a splash. For CBS Sports at the 16th Winter Olympics, I'm Leslie Visser.
It's 9 minutes past the hour. Time for Mark and a look at this morning's weather. The guy to watch in the luge is Duncan Kennedy. And this guy he really could win a gold medal for the United States. And one of the things he talks about when he's on his luge, he talks about gelling out. And I thought that's something you might be able to relate to.
Is that in the neighborhood of vegging out? By the way, I want to tell, the way you said Mitterrand, by the way, earlier. Harry, you're ready for France. You're ready for France. Let's talk about the weather. 39 degrees in New York City today. That storm that was in the south yesterday, going to be moving off the coast of the Carolinas as the day lingers on. So that storm will be heading to the east. What that will do, you're going to see some wind winds picking up during the day, but basically as the storm moves away, the precipitation will go along with it. Let's see if I can pull these guys apart here on this, the day before Albertville. We're going to see some United States kind of snow up across the Great Lakes, maybe an inch or two up there. They call that a dusting up in that part of the country. Hancock, Michigan is up there. 55 in Mobile today. As you get to the center part of the country, kind of quiet, nice day to ride across the Rockies. I don't know if you should ride with the top down. Maybe you get that heat blowing and the stereo blowing as well. You might be able to handle some of the cold up there, but there's not going to be any precipitation, some clouds. Rain, as you can see, still in the west, not nearly as bad as it was yesterday. The heaviest rain right along that Nevada-California border. L.A. got about an inch of rain, maybe a little bit more yesterday, so a lot of rain did fall. Scattered showers today, off and on, from San Diego to San Francisco. It's Albertville time. Let's take a look over in France. Let's go east, my friends. Albertville, 38 degrees today, sunny conditions. We're on our way to France. Bonjour. That's a quick look at the national forecast. Let's take a look at your weather.
A little bit cooler today than what we've been used to. Temperatures in the north will be around the 30-degree point today, while to the south, mid-30s to perhaps upper 30s in the southwestern counties. Quite a bit of sunshine today, some scattered clouds, and a high in Des Moines of 35.
Wake-up call coming next. Harry?
All right, thanks, Mark. Every 4 years, the whole country watches one small state, New Hampshire. And this year, the Republicans have what could be a real contest in the primary between President Bush and Pat Buchanan. But the Democrats have 5 major candidates to choose from. And joining us from Washington, one man who is looking very closely at New Hampshire these days, Democratic National Chairman Ron Brown. Good morning.
Good morning, Harry.
Well, you remember a year ago, people talked about George Bush as president for life. Suddenly now, the president is indeed vulnerable, or so the polls show. Yet at the same time, your most popular and best-known candidate is Bill Clinton. Do you think you have a problem?
I don't think we have a problem at all. I'm feeling very upbeat. George Bush's presidency has been a failed presidency. We've got a number of outstanding candidates, several of whom can and will beat George Bush in November. And obviously, I'm upbeat if I think we can get a Democrat back in the White House again.
But at the same time, we're hearing stories this week, and they're not very secret, that you all may be shopping around for some new candidates. Not sure that these guys could beat the president.
Well, I don't know who you all is. I believe that in all likelihood, the next president of the United States is running in the Democratic primary in New Hampshire on February 18th.
You think that one of those guys has the weight to beat the president?
I certainly do, and frankly, the president has less and less weight every day. As you indicated a year ago, he looked invincible, and now he looks very beatable, and he should be, because he really hasn't spoken to the needs and interests of everyday working men and women who are struggling through this recession that he could have gotten us out of if he had demonstrated any leadership on the economic front.
Well, let's go back to conventional wisdom one more time. The folks also say that if the economy improves, say, by June or July, there really won't be an election, that the president will just go back again.
No, we all hope that the economy improves. We've got to be concerned about the plight of folks struggling to make ends meet, to put food on the table. The fact is the president has no credibility whatsoever on economic issues. He's played the game of denial and blame for 3 years. First he denied that a recession even existed, then he said it would be short and mild, then he said it was over, then he said it finally existed, then he said wait 90 days and I'll give you my plan for recovery. The State of the Union address was a flop. He blamed everybody from the credit card companies to the banks, to consumers, to the Japanese. The blame for the economic condition of America is right on the doorstep of the White House, and George Bush is at fault.
Is there a plan A? Is there a Democratic plan A that's going to cure all the ills you just outlined?
Well, there certainly is a plan, and frankly, what makes me so optimistic about 92 is all of our candidates are talking in very practical, real terms to the voters of our nation. They're saying we've got to reinvest in America, in our infrastructure, to create jobs and economic opportunity, to put a real health care plan in shape, not the kind of phony plan the president outlined yesterday, to invest in education so our children can be competitive, to change our priorities, that in fact the Cold War is over. We cannot afford any longer to spend $200 billion a year defending Japan and Europe. From what? They've got to share in that defense burden. And most of all, we've got to reverse Reaganomics. Reaganomics have been an absolute disaster for America. The last time George Bush had economic policy right was in the 1980 Republican primary race when he looked at Ronald Reagan and he said, Mr. Governor, that's voodoo economics. The problem is George Bush has adopted voodoo economics for America, and it's got us in deep trouble.
You know what the problem is, though, especially in an election year, and you listen to, well, gee, we need to do this, we need to do that, and we have to improve schools, and we want to, there's a whole laundry list of problems in America that certainly need addressing. And what you hear so seldom, it seems to me, is how we're going to pay for all of this stuff.
Oh, I think we're going to pay. We've got to make tough decisions. We've got to reorder priorities. We've got to eliminate things that aren't working. It's going to take some courage to do that. I think Democrats are absolutely willing to do it. I think an example that this White House is not is this health care, you can't even call it a plan, that they announced yesterday. No financial plan at all. No information to the American people about how it's going to be paid for. And what ought to make us suspicious is that the people praising it today are the insurance industry, the AMA, and the pharmaceutical companies. That ought to make us very suspicious about whether this is a plan that really speaks to the health needs of the American people.
Which should be an interesting 6 or 7 or 8 months, I guess. Ron Brown, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Harry.
Mark?
It's 15 minutes past the hour. Next on CBS This Morning, in search of the first big primary prize, the New Hampshire voter. And stay with us on CBS in our next half hour to find out what we're learning about plants and your health. Plus, Paula's report, will Albertville be ready by tomorrow? And Gene Siskel on the tough transition from sports star to screen star.
The Midwest's largest Autorama RV Center rolls back prices. 91 Cobra Bed Model Mini, $25,800. 92 7-Seas Mini Home, $29,450. 92 Cobra 28-foot fifth wheel, $10,950. 92 Monterey 30-foot queen bed, save $10,000. New Cobra Class 8, loaded, $38,500. Over 20 pre-owned motor homes, your choice, $6,900. Today's models at prices from the past. Now at Autorama RV Center, 2227 Southeast 14th in Des Moines.